Admiral walked into the great hall of the Galactic Council. His boots made soft sounds on the crystal floor. Above him, the ceiling stretched high into darkness, filled with floating lights that looked like tiny stars. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their seats, arranged in a massive circle around the speaking platform. Was 53 years old. His hair was gray at the sides, and his face showed the marks of 30 years in the Earth Defense Force. He wore his dress uniform, dark blue with silver buttons. On his chest, he carried the medals of 3 wars, but none of that mattered here. To these aliens, he was just another human, a member of a young species that had only discovered faster-than-light travel 20 years ago. He stepped onto the platform and looked around the room. Some of the aliens were tall and thin, with skin like blue glass. Others were short and wide, covered in thick fur. A few floated in tanks of strange liquid. All of them watched him with expressions that ranged from boredom to mild curiosity. "Thank you for allowing me to speak," said. His voice was carried by translation devices to every ear in the room. "I come with a warning." A soft laugh rippled through the council. Had expected this. He continued anyway. "The Empire has been moving ships toward our border for 6 months. We have tried to talk with them. They do not respond. We believe they plan to invade Earth." One of the tall blue aliens raised a long finger. His name was something could not pronounce, so humans called him the High Speaker. He led the council. "Admiral," the High Speaker said, "they are known to us. They are aggressive, yes, but they are not foolish. They would not attack a species under the protection of the Galactic Council." "With respect," said, "Earth is not under your protection. You are application for membership 3 years ago." "Because you are too young," another alien said. This one looked like a large insect with golden wings. "Your species has been in space for only 2 decades. You must prove yourselves first." Took a slow breath. He had heard these words many times before. "I understand, but that is not why I am here today. I am here to warn you about what will happen if they attack us." More laughter. The insect alien made a clicking sound that the translator turned into words. "What will happen? They have 3,000 warships. You have perhaps 200. The math is simple." "The math does not tell the whole story," said. He pressed a button on his wrist, and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a long metal rod pointed at one end. "This is a projectile. It is made of solid tungsten. It is 2 meters long and weighs 500 kilograms." The aliens looked at the image without much interest. "A uses electromagnetic force to fire this projectile," continued. "No explosives, no fuel, just pure speed. I can accelerate this rod to 15% of the speed of light." The room went quiet. "At that speed," said, "this simple piece of metal carries more energy than a nuclear bomb. It will pass through any shield. It will cut through any armor. Nothing can stop it." The High Speaker leaned forward in his seat. His blue face showed something new, not fear exactly, but attention, real attention. "You are saying," he said slowly, "that you have developed kinetic weapons." "Yes. But kinetic weapons are primitive. All advanced species use energy shields and plasma weapons. Kinetic projectiles are too slow to hit moving targets." "Slow projectiles are too slow," agreed. "But our projectiles are not slow. At 15% of light speed, the target cannot dodge, the shield cannot adapt, the armor cannot hold." An alien in the back of the room stood up. He was from a species did not recognize. His skin was dark red and he had 4 arms. "This is a trick," he said. "No one uses kinetic weapons. They were abandoned thousands of years ago." "And that is exactly why they will work," said. "You have all built your defenses against energy weapons. Your shields are designed to absorb heat and radiation. They cannot stop a solid object moving at relativistic speed." The insect alien made an angry clicking sound. "Even if this is true, you cannot threaten the Council. We are here to maintain peace." "I am not threatening anyone," said. His voice was calm but firm. "I am warning you. If they attack Earth, we will defend ourselves, and we will win. The destruction will be significant." He looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as he could. "I am asking you to stop this war before it begins. Tell them to stay away from our system. If you do not, many will die, on both sides." The High Speaker exchanged looks with several other council members. Then he turned back to Admiral. "We appreciate your concern, but we cannot interfere in the internal affairs of the Empire based on the claims of a young species with unproven technology. If you have evidence that the plan to attack, present it to the proper authorities. Otherwise, this council has more important matters to discuss." Stared at him for a long moment. In the observation gallery above, Lieutenant was recording everything. She was young, only 28, with sharp eyes and quick hands. She had been aide for 2 years. She knew what this moment meant. "Very well," said. "I have delivered my warning. What happens next is on your conscience." He turned and walked out of the hall. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Behind him, the aliens began to talk among themselves. Their voices mixed together into a low hum of dismissal and doubt. "Met him at the door. They did not believe you," she said quietly. "No," agreed, "they did not." "What do we do now?" Looked back at the council chamber one last time. The floating lights seemed dimmer now, or maybe that was just his imagination. "We go home," he said. "We prepare, and when they come, we show the galaxy what humans can do." They walked together down the long corridor toward the human shuttle bay. The station around them hummed with the sounds of 100 different species going about their daily lives. None of them looked at the two humans. None of them cared. But they would, soon they would. Glanced at her commander. "Do you think they will remember this day?" Almost smiled. "They will remember. They will remember that we tried to warn them, and they will remember that they laughed." The shuttle bay doors opened before them, revealing their small ship waiting in the darkness of space. Earth was far away, but it was waiting for them, waiting with its determination and its refusal to die quietly. The war was coming, and humanity was ready. 3 weeks passed after Admiral's warning to the Galactic Council. Nothing changed. The ships continued their slow movement toward human space. The Council continued to ignore the problem, and on Earth, the people continued their lives without knowing how close danger had come. In the great war room of the flagship, Supreme Commander stood before a massive screen. He was large even by standards, with thick gray skin and eyes like black stones. His race had conquered 12 species over the past 1,000 years. They had never lost a war. They did not expect to start losing now. "Show me the human defenses," he ordered. The screen changed to display the solar system. Earth sat at the center, a small blue dot surrounded by a thin ring of orbital stations. Red markers showed the positions of human ships. There were not many. 237 combat vessels, his aide reported. Mostly small patrol craft, 42 larger destroyers, 12 heavy cruisers, and one station they call the Hammer. It appears to be their command center. Studied the display with cold satisfaction. And our forces. 3,200 ships, Supreme Commander, including 80 dreadnoughts and 400 heavy cruisers. Then this will be quick. The aide hesitated, noticed. "Speak," he commanded. "Supreme Commander, the human ambassador delivered a message yesterday. They claim to possess advanced kinetic weapons. They say these weapons can pierce our shields." Made a sound deep in his throat. It might have been a laugh. "Kinetic weapons, rocks and metal. This is what the humans threaten us with. They claim their projectiles travel at relativistic speeds." Impossible. Turned away from the screen. No race has developed practical technology. The power requirements alone would drain a planet. The humans are lying. They are trying to scare us because they know they cannot win." The aide bowed his head. "Of course, Supreme Commander." Walked to the window of his war room. Outside, the stars stretched into infinity. Somewhere out there, in a tiny corner of the galaxy, the humans were waiting. They thought they were special. They thought their primitive technology would save them. They were wrong. "Send a message to the fleet," said. "We attack in 40 hours. I want Earth under control within a week." Far away, in orbit around Earth, Lieutenant sat at her monitoring station. She was 31 years old, with short black hair and steady hands. Her job was to watch the deep space sensors and report anything unusual. For the past 3 weeks, she had watched the fleet grow closer and closer. "Still coming," she said quietly. Her partner, Sergeant Dong, looked up from his own screen. He was older than her, with gray in his hair and tired eyes. He had served on the orbital station for 15 years. He had seen many things, but he had never seen anything like this. "How many now?" he asked. "Over 3,000. His voice was calm, but her hands were tight on the edge of her console. "They will reach our outer defense line in 36 hours. Dong was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Do you think that will work?" Thought about the question. She had seen the tests. She had watched the tungsten rods punch through asteroids like they were made of paper. She had felt the station shake from the power of the electromagnetic accelerators. "They will work," she said. "The question is whether they will be enough." 3,000 ships is a lot. "Yes, it is." She reached for her communication panel and opened a channel to the surface. "Sole Command, this is Orbital Station 7, requesting Captain Minyu." A moment later, a familiar voice came through the speaker. "This is Minyu. Go ahead, Lieutenant." Minyu was 40 years old, one of the youngest captains in the Earth Defense Force. He commanded the ground-based batteries outside Seoul. His voice was always steady, no matter what was happening, found it comforting. "Sir, the fleet has increased speed. They will be in range sooner than we expected. I am sending you the updated coordinates now." Received. There was a pause as Minyu studied the data. 36 hours, that's cutting it close. "Yes, sir." "Have you informed Admiral?" "He knows. He is on his way back from the outer colonies. He will arrive in 20 hours. "Good, we will need him." Another pause. "How are you holding up?" She almost smiled. That was like Minyu, always thinking about his people, even when death was coming for all of them. "I am fine, sir, just watching and waiting." "The hardest part," Minyu's voice softened slightly, "get some rest if you can. When things start, they will happen fast." "Understood, sir, out." She closed the channel and leaned back in her chair. Through the window beside her station, she could see Earth below. The lights of cities sparkled like scattered jewels across the dark continents. Billions of people down there, living their lives. Most of them did not know what was coming. Dong was watching her. "The captain seems confident." "He always does." "Do you think he believes we can win?" Considered the question. She had known Minyu for 5 years. She had served under him on 2 different postings. She had seen him face impossible situations with the same calm expression he always wore. "I think he believes we will fight," she said finally. "Whether we win or not, we will fight." "That is very human of him." "Yes, it is." She turned back to her screens. The fleet was still there, a cloud of red dots slowly eating up the distance between them and Earth. Each dot was a ship. Each ship carried weapons and soldiers and the intention to conquer. But Earth was not defenseless. In orbit, the platforms floated in silent rows, their long barrels pointed at the stars. On the ground, the heavy batteries sat in their bunkers, ready to fire. And in space, the human fleet was moving into position, small but determined. Thought about what the aliens had said at the council meeting. They had called humans young, primitive, unproven. They had laughed at the idea of kinetic weapons. They would not be laughing for much longer. She opened a new channel. All stations, this is Orbital 7. Begin final system checks. Arm all weapons. Prepare for combat operations. Across the defense network, lights began to change from green to red. Computers hummed as they calculated firing solutions. Crews ran to their battle stations. The machine of human defense was waking up. Dong looked at her with something like respect. That was decisive. Admiral gave me authority to begin preparations if the situation changed. She kept her eyes on her screens. The situation has changed. You know what this means? Yes, finally looked at him. Her eyes were hard but not afraid. It means war. 36 hours. That was all the time they had. 36 hours to check every system, charge every, and say goodbye to everyone they loved. Thought about her mother, living alone in. She thought about her little brother, studying to be a doctor at the university. She thought about all the small things she had planned to do after her tour ended. None of that mattered now. The only thing that mattered was the job in front of her. The enemy was coming and she had work to do. She straightened her shoulders and focused on her station. The numbers scrolled across her screens, endless lines of data that would decide the fate of her planet. They had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. The fleet entered the outer edge of the solar system like a storm rolling across an ocean. 3,200 ships moved in perfect formation, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Supreme Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tiny blue planet grow larger on his screen. "Status report," he ordered. "All ships in position, Supreme Commander. Human defenses are minimal. Their fleet is holding near the third planet. They have not attempted to engage." Nodded. This was expected. The humans knew they were outnumbered. They were probably hopping to negotiate at the last moment. It would not save them. "Open a channel to the human command," he said. "I will give them one chance to surrender." The communication officer worked his console. A moment later, a face appeared on the main screen. It was an older human male with gray hair and cold eyes. Recognized him from the intelligence reports. "Admiral." Supreme Commander said. His voice was flat and calm. "I was wondering when you would call." "Admiral, you know why I am here. Your planet is surrounded. Your ships are outnumbered. You cannot win this fight." Leaned forward slightly. "Surrender now and I will spare your civilian population. Continue to resist and I will destroy everything." Was quiet for a moment. Then to his surprise he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "I gave your council a warning 3 weeks ago," said. "They laughed at me. They said humans were young and primitive. They said our weapons were toys." "They were right." "No, they were wrong." Smile faded. "I am going to give you the same warning now, Commander. Turn your fleet around, go home. If you continue this attack, you will die, all of you." Made the sound of contempt, empty threats from a dying species. "They are not threats, they are facts." Eyes were hard like stone. "You have never fought humans before. You do not know what we are capable of. I am trying to save your lives." "Enough," cut the channel. He turned to his tactical officer. "Begin the assault. Target their orbital stations first." The fleet began to move. The dreadnoughts led the way, their massive shields glowing with absorbed energy. Behind them came the cruisers and destroyers, thousands of weapons ready to fire. It was the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Nothing could stand against it. On Earth's orbital defense station, Captain Minu watched the enemy approach. He was surrounded by screens and officers and the constant hum of computers. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. "They are in range, sir," reported from her station nearby. She had transferred to the command center 6 hours ago. She wanted to be where the decisions were made. "How many?" "All of them." Minu looked at the tactical display. The ships were arranged in their classic attack formation. They expected to overwhelm the human defenses with sheer numbers. They expected an easy victory. They were about to learn otherwise. "Open a channel to all platforms," Minyu ordered. "Code Alpha, fire on my command." Across the defense network, lights turned from amber to red. The platforms powered up, their electromagnetic coils humming with enough energy to light a city. Inside the barrels, tungsten rods waited in perfect stillness. "Targeting solutions confirmed," the weapons officer said. "All platforms ready." Minyu took a deep breath. This was the moment. Everything they had built, everything they had prepared for, came down to this single command. "Fire." The word was quiet, almost gentle, but its effect was anything but. Across Earth's orbital defense line, 200 platforms fired simultaneously. The tungsten rods accelerated to 15% of the speed of light in less than a second. They crossed the distance to the fleet in moments, and then they hit. The first dreadnought did not have time to react. One moment it was flying at the head of the formation. The next moment, a rod punched through its shields like they were not even there. The rod continued through the ship's armor, through its decks, through its reactor core, and out the other side. The dreadnought exploded in a ball of fire and debris. Then the other rods arrived. On the bridge of his flagship, watched in horror as his fleet began to die. Ships exploded all around him. The shields that had protected his people for 1,000 years were useless. The armor that had stopped plasma and lasers and missiles meant nothing against solid metal moving at relativistic speed. "What is happening?" he shouted. "Return fire, return fire." His weapons officer was pale with shock. "We are firing, Supreme Commander, but the humans are too far away. Our plasma weapons cannot reach them at this distance, and their projectiles are too fast to intercept." Another rod slammed into a ship nearby. It was a cruiser, one of the best in the fleet. It broke in half like a toy and scattered into space. "Retreat," ordered. His voice was strange in his own ears. He had never given that command before. "All ships retreat, get us out of range." The fleet tried to turn, but they kept firing. Each shot was precise, calculated by computers that could track targets across millions of kilometers. Each rod found its mark. Watch from her station as the fleet fell apart. The tactical display showed ship after ship going dark. The red dots were vanishing faster than she could count. "They are running," she said. Minyu nodded slowly. His face showed no joy. "Continue firing, do not let them regroup." On the ground, the heavy batteries joined the attack. These were the big guns, the ones that could fire rods twice as heavy and twice as fast. They targeted the largest ships, the dreadnoughts and carriers that were trying to escape. The rods crossed the void in heartbeats. They hit with the force of nuclear bombs. The dreadnoughts, the pride of the Navy, died without firing a single effective shot. His flagship shook as a rod passed close by. It missed the ship itself but destroyed the escort flying beside them. Debris bounced off the flagship's hull. "How many ships have we lost?" demanded. His aide's voice was hollow. 1,200 and counting, Supreme Commander. The fleet is being destroyed." 1,200 ships, in less than 10 minutes, could not process the numbers. They were impossible. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were primitive. Humans were weak. But humans had. "All ships," broadcast on the fleet channel. "Maximum speed. Get out of the system. This is a full retreat." The survivors of the fleet fled. They ran as fast as their engines could carry them. Behind them, they left the wreckage of their invasion. Broken ships drifted in the void, cold and silent. On the orbital station, Minyu watched them go. His crew was quiet around him. They had won. They had actually won. "Casualties?" he asked. 3 patrol ships damaged," the tactical officer reported. "No ships destroyed, minimal personnel injuries." Minyu closed his eyes for a moment. 3 ships damaged against over 1,200 enemy ships destroyed. It was a victory beyond anything they had imagined. stood up from her station. Her legs were shaking. "Sir, the Galactic Council is requesting a communication channel. They want to talk to Admiral." Minyu almost laughed. Of course they did. Now they wanted to talk, now that they had seen what human weapons could do. "Tell them to wait," he said. "We are busy counting wreckage." The first battle was over, but the war had just begun. News of the battle spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species, every station, every ship received the reports. The mighty fleet had been crushed. Over 1,200 warships destroyed in minutes. The survivors were still running, their shields useless, their pride shattered. And the humans had lost nothing. In the great hall of the Galactic Council, the delegates sat in stunned silence. The High Speaker stared at the tactical recordings that played on the central display. He watched the rods punch through dreadnoughts like they were made of paper. He watched the explosions, the debris, the chaos of a fleet being torn apart. "This cannot be real," the insect delegate said. His wings were folded tight against his body, a sign of deep distress. "No weapon can do this." "The recordings are confirmed," another delegate said. Her voice was soft with shock. "Multiple sources. The humans did exactly what their admiral said they would do." The High Speaker said nothing. He was remembering the day Admiral had stood on this very platform and warned them. He was remembering how they had laughed. They were not laughing now. On Earth, Commander prepared her counteroffensive. She was 45 years old, tall and lean, with eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 20 years in the Earth Defense Force, rising from a simple soldier to the commander of all ground and space forces. Now she stood in the war room of the Sol Command Center, surrounded by maps and officers and the constant flow of information. "They have colonies on 4 of our border planets," she said. "They invaded those worlds 5 years ago. We were too weak to stop them then." She looked around the room. "We are not weak anymore." Admiral stood beside her. He had returned to Earth 12 hours before the battle, just in time to give the final authorization for the defense. His face was tired but satisfied. "What are you proposing?" he asked. "We take back what is ours," pointed to the map. "The forces on these colonies are small, a few thousand soldiers on each world. They never expected to need more. After what just happened, they will not be expecting an attack. And if they send reinforcements, then we destroy them too." His voice was hard. "We have proven our weapons work. Now we must prove our will. If we let them keep our colonies, other species will think we are still weak. They will think the battle was luck." Nodded slowly. "You are right. How soon can you move?" "My forces are already loading onto transport ships. We can launch within 6 hours." The counteroffensive began at dawn, Earth time. 10 transport ships carrying 5,000 soldiers left orbit and headed for the occupied colonies. Escorting them were 40 human warships, each equipped with batteries. It was a small force by galactic standards, but galactic standards were changing. The first colony they reached was called Hope Station. It had been a mining settlement before they came. Now it was a work camp where humans labored under alien guards. The people there had almost given up hope of ever being free. Led the assault personally. Her shuttle touched down on the planet's surface while her soldiers poured out of the transport ships above. The garrison was taken completely by surprise. They had expected months or years before the humans could recover from the invasion attempt. They did not expect this. The battle for Hope Station lasted 3 hours. The soldiers fought hard, but they were outnumbered and their shields could stop plasma weapons but not the kinetic rifles the human soldiers carried. One by one, their positions fell. Found the garrison commander hiding in his bunker. He was a young, barely old enough to hold his rank. His black stone eyes were wide with fear as she pointed her weapon at his chest. "Surrender," she said. "Order your remaining forces to lay down their weapons. No more of your people need to die today." The commander looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he activated his communication device and gave the order. The fighting stopped. That night the human flag flew over Hope Station for the first time in 5 years. The colonists came out of their shelters and work camps, blinking in the light of their own sun. Many of them cried. Some fell to their knees. They had never expected to see this day. Stood among them, accepting their thanks with a humble nod. She did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had done what needed to be done. Her communication device beeped. It was Admiral. "The second colony has been liberated," he reported. "The third and fourth are under assault. Resistance is light. Casualties? Minimal. They are surrendering when they see our forces approaching." Allowed herself a small smile. "They are learning." Yes, and so is the rest of the galaxy. Back on the council station, the High Speaker received report after report of human victories. The 4 colonies reclaimed. Prisoners being treated humanely. Human ships patrolling the border, they're ready but silent. He had called an emergency session of the council. The delegates were gathering now, their voices mixing in anxious conversation. Everyone was asking the same questions. What would the humans do next? Would they attack other species? Was this the beginning of a new empire? When the session began, the High Speaker stood at his podium and raised his hand for silence. "We have made a mistake," he said simply. 3 weeks ago, Admiral came to us with a warning. He told us they were planning to invade He told us his people had weapons that could defeat them. We did not listen. We laughed at him. The hall was silent. No one dared to speak. "The humans have proven themselves," the High Speaker continued. "They have done what no other species has done in 1,000 years. They have defeated thee in open battle. They have reclaimed their lost territories, and they have done it without our help." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I propose that we immediately grant Earth full membership in the Galactic Council. They have earned it." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in history, a species was admitted to the Council on the day of their greatest military victory. Admiral received the news on his ship as he watched the last prisoners being transported to holding facilities. His voice came through his communication device. "Did you hear? We are Council members now." "I heard." "You do not sound happy." Watch the stars through his window. "I am thinking about all the people who died before today, all the colonists who suffered under rule, all the soldiers who gave their lives so we could build our defenses." He shook his head. "We should not have needed to prove ourselves with blood. They should have listened. But they did not, and now they will." Yes, turned away from the window. Now they will. The galaxy was watching. The humans had announced their presence in a way that could not be ignored. The old powers were learning a new lesson. Never underestimate a species that refuses to give up. The reckoning had come, and it was only the beginning. 6 months had passed since the battle that changed everything. The galaxy was different now. The old powers still held their seats in the council, but they no longer spoke with the same confidence. A new voice had joined the conversation, and it was a voice they could not ignore. Sergeant stood on the surface of and looked up at the strange orange sky. He was 32 years old, a career soldier who had joined the Earth Defense Force at 18. He had fought in 3 campaigns since the war began. He had watched friends die and enemies surrender. He had seen things that would stay with him forever. Now he was standing where no human had ever stood before, the heart of the Empire. Around him, his squad secured the landing zone. They moved with careful precision, their weapons ready but not raised. The civilians who watched them from a distance did not try to fight. They did not try to run. They just stared with their black stone eyes, trying to understand how their world had fallen. "Sergeant," one of his soldiers called, "the commander wants you at the Capitol building." Nodded and began walking. The city was strange and beautiful in its own way. The buildings were tall and thin, made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. The streets were wide and clean. Everything was designed for efficiency, for order. But order had failed them. Their shields had failed them. Their fleet had failed them. And now their capital was surrounded by human soldiers. Commander met him at the steps of the main government building. She looked tired. They all looked tired. 6 months of war did that to people. "How is morale?" she asked. "Good, Commander. The soldiers know why we are here." "And why are we here, Sergeant?" Thought about the question. It was not as simple as it seemed. To end the war, to make sure they never threaten us again, to show the galaxy that humans keep their promises. Nodded slowly. "That is correct, remember it. Today is not about revenge. Today is about peace." They entered the building together. The halls were empty except for a few guards who had been disarmed but not harmed. At the end of the longest corridor was a massive door made of the same dark metal as the buildings outside. Behind it waited the leadership. Supreme Commander was there. He had survived the first battle, fled with the remnants of his fleet and tried to rebuild his forces. But there was nothing left to rebuild. Every ship he sent against the humans was destroyed. Every plan he made was countered. In the end, he had been forced to watch as human soldiers landed on his. He stood now in the center of the room, surrounded by his advisors and generals. His face showed nothing. His eyes were cold and dead. "Commander," he said, his voice was rough, "you have one." Stopped a few meters in front of him. Her soldiers spread out behind her, but she did not look at them. She kept her eyes on. "The war is over," she said. "You will sign the treaty that has been prepared. Your fleet will be reduced to defensive vessels only. Your empire will pay reparations to the colonies you occupied, and you will release all prisoners you have taken." His jaw tightened. "And if we refuse?" "Then we will leave, and in 1 hour the platforms in orbit will begin firing. They will not stop until every military installation on this planet is destroyed." His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I do not want that. My people do not want that. We have killed enough already, but we will do what we must to protect ourselves." The room was silent. The generals exchanged looks. Some of them seemed ready to fight, but they had seen what human weapons could do. They knew there was no victory waiting for them. Closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, something had changed in his face. The pride was still there, but it was buried under something heavier: defeat. "I will sign your treaty," he said. Nodded, "Sergeant, the flag." Stepped forward and pulled the folded cloth from his pack. It was the flag of the United Earth Government, blue and green with a single white star at the center. He had carried it across 3 worlds. He had promised himself he would plant it here on the, if they ever made it this far. They had made it. He walked to the balcony that overlooked the Capitol Square. Below, thousands of citizens had gathered to witness the end of their empire. Above, human ships floated in the orange sky, their silent but ready. Planted the flag in the holder that had been prepared. The cloth caught the wind and unfurled, showing the symbol of humanity to everyone below. He did not cheer. He did not celebrate. He just stood there and let the moment sink in. Far away on the Galactic Council station, the high speaker watched the ceremony through a live broadcast. Beside him sat delegates from 100 different species, all watching the same image: a human flag flying on the. "They did it," the insect delegate said quietly. "They actually did it." The high speaker did not respond. He was thinking about the future. They had been the most powerful military force in the galaxy for 1,000 years. Now they were signing a surrender treaty to a species that had been in space for only 2 decades. The balance of power had shifted. Nothing would ever be the same. On the balcony joined. They stood side by side, looking out at the city below. "What happens now?" asked. "Now we go home, we rebuild our colonies, we train new soldiers and build new ships," paused, "and we hope we never have to use them." "Do you think there will be more wars?" Considered the question. The galaxy was vast and full of species they had never met. Some of them would be friendly, some of them would not. But one thing had changed forever. "Maybe," she said, "but if there are, we will be ready, and everyone knows it now. Everyone knows what happens when you attack humanity." Admiral's words came back to her, the ones he had spoken at the council meeting 6 months ago. They will remember that we tried to warn them, and they will remember that they laughed. The galaxy was not laughing anymore. In the years that followed, humanity grew stronger. They built new stations and new ships. They made alliances with species who respected their strength and their fairness. They never started a war, but they ended every one that was brought to them. That had saved Earth became the foundation of a new doctrine. Other species tried to copy the technology, but none could match the power and precision that humans had achieved. It was as if the weapons had been made for them, designed by their own nature to protect and destroy in equal measure. Sargent returned to Earth and retired from the military. He lived quietly in a small house near the sea, watching the waves and thinking about everything he had seen. Sometimes young soldiers came to visit him, asking for stories about the war. He told them what he could. He kept the rest to himself. But he kept the flag, the one he had planted on the. It hung on his wall, a reminder of what humanity could do when pushed to the edge. The universe had learned a lesson. Humans were not primitive. Humans were not weak. Humans were survivors, builders, fighters. They asked for peace, but they were ready for war. And they had. The galaxy would never forget.